my life. You know, it was a very crazy, very hard fight. Yeah, I like it.
How did you see the fight progressing? When Fabio hurt Daniel in the first round, did you think he was going to go on to win?
Yeah, but you know, this is heavyweight boxing. You know, first of all, when I see the situation, I think crazy. Now Fabio will stop the fight early, but you know, you see the result.
You see Fabio's face was bloody, it was a mess.
Crazy.
How much heart and desire did they both show in there tonight?
This was very hard for him. You know, I think today he seemed good.
How's it for yourself? You spoke about you want world titles, you want the big names. The winner, you want Daniel Dubois.
I think you heard what Frank said. You have a rematch, you know. But you know, I'm the #1 of WBC. I faced first about of the situation with Rico and Usyk. When after the situation comes out big news, maybe why not? I fight one the winner from the fight.
Hell of a fight. I think the worst thing that happened was that knockdown in the first round. After that, Wardley was just looking for that right hand. No jabs, no defense, no left hook. Sorry, meat and chicken. You know what I mean? But it was a hell of a fight. He showed the heart of a champion, and I think there should be a rematch.
Do you think that created that false sense of like the fight was kind of heading towards Fabio's favour, that first round knockdown then?
When the knockdown happened, I was like, oh shit. But then in the third round, I was like, I don't know. And then once Dubois' jab started landing, I told the guy sitting next to me, it's over.
I have to ask you, buddy, we saw moments where Don Charles seemed to be kind of slapping Daniel Dubois in the corner.
Right.
As a trainer yourself now, what do you make of it? Is that something?
Wake him up. You know, calm down and you got knocked down, so what? Wake him up.
Andy Pure off Fight Up TV, joined by trainer Don Charles here in Manchester. Don, firstly, congratulations. You did it with Daniel at Wembley, you've done it tonight in Manchester. How do you feel now as a trainer, as a coach, to have helped guide that young man to become world champion once again?
Well, you know me, I praise the Almighty, the Most High. God is great, God is great, God is great. That was a magical, epic, memorable night. This will live with me forever.
Let's just walk through the fight. That first round, that first 10 seconds, when you saw Daniel drop, what went through your mind? I spoke to Buddy McGirt after. Buddy said he probably helped Daniel because he helped wake him up.
Yeah, you know, this is heavyweight boxing. That can happen. When you got two big punches like that, that can happen. And yeah, he got up from it. Second round he boxed good. Third round he went heavy again. And that was definitely not the script. That's not how it's supposed from our side. But you know what? Now I can say this, obviously, we stayed calm. We stayed calm.
With all the dust settled following the fiery encounter between Fabio Wardley and Daniel Dubois, where we have seen exactly how the fight played out, it is time for a bit of flashback. Long before the fight took place, there were numerous predictions by different individuals on how the fight would unfold. Predictions of dominance, upsets, and those that eerily got it all right existed. And that begs the question, who predicted this fight better than anyone else, and who missed out completely? Even before the match took place, Peter Fury had clearly indicated that this wasn't going to be an easy contest to call. Although he favored Fabio Wardley due to his reliability and calmness, he also mentioned that Daniel Dubois brought an unpredictability factor in his boxing style, where he could unleash his knockout power in a split second, which might make things difficult for him. Fury highlighted that Dubois had shown himself to be a lethal force in some of his past matches.
As I mentioned earlier, Wardley against Dubois. How do you see that one playing out? I mean, that is certainly one of the most highly anticipated boxing fights that we've got this year. And of course, I think especially because the winner of that could be in shot with an Usyk, and as you just mentioned there, you're not looking too much past Alexander Usyk. I mean, who would? How do you see that one playing out?
I think it's a great fight between the two of them. Dubois is dangerous if he turns up, but Wardley's so consistent. You know, you've got to fancy Wardley in this fight, but you know, it's not a foregone conclusion because Dubois can punch. We've seen him box. We've seen what he was like against Ergovic. We've seen what he was like against Joel Miller. You know, if that Dubois turns up, he's a problem for anybody. So.
This conservative outlook by Peter was shared by Frank Warren, who thought the implications were great but not career-threatening for either of them. Prior to the fight, Warren noted that boxing at the heavyweight level is always marked by boxers who recover from their defeats, stressing that practically all the greatest champions have been defeated before. While everyone was concerned about who the winner would be, he stressed that the way the loser loses is far more important. He also stated that both Wardley and Dubois are at the top levels of their sport, being excellent heavyweights that can match any other boxer in their division.
In terms of jeopardy, who is there more jeopardy for in terms of who loses? Is there more for Dubois or more for Wardley?
It depends how you lose. I mean, look, boxing's... You go and look at all the heavyweight champions in history, there's only one who remained undefeated, which is Marciano. All the others have got losses on their records, and they all come back after losses. That's where we are, that's the sport we're in, and they've all been involved in great fights, having had lost fights.
Just very finally from me as well, in terms of all the heavyweights that you've worked with over the previous years, how do you rate both men?
I rate them both as really good, really good quality, world-class heavyweights.
In the process of breaking down this bout further, Warren threw his full support behind Dubois, citing the extent to which Dubois had been opposed in his career up until this point. Warren noted that Dubois had only lost 2 times, one of them being from the problem with his eye, while the second was the loss to Usyk, who Warren referred to as the standout heavyweight of this generation. In addition to that, Warren pointed out that Dubois had come into this match with a lot of momentum coming off wins over some highly ranked opponents.
You know, Daniel, look at his resume, look at everybody he's fought. He's fought all the best fighters. He's done it, and he's lost to 2 men in that whole time in his career. One was a bad problem he had with his eye, and the other was against Usyk, who's the best of his generation. But look at him, he's on a roll. I think he beat 5 or 6 guys who are ranked in the top 10. And he's going straight in the deep end with a fight against a guy who never had an amateur fight, who's learnt on the job and has done unbelievably well. This is exciting.
In addition to the previously building excitement for the battle, Frazer Clarke had believed that both athletes were going into the bout with immense confidence. According to Clarke, despite his defeat to Usyk, Dubois did not appear mentally defeated and was still carrying the attitude of an aggressive contender in the heavyweight division. On the other hand, Clarke pointed out that Wardley was an athlete riding on an unbelievable wave of confidence, with each performance improving his attitude even more. Furthermore, according to Clarke, Wardley's win over Joe Parker was no less than achieving a world title, which made the bout even more anticipated.
I love the fight. I think both fighters will go into it full of confidence as well. Even though Daniel Dubois is coming off that defeat to Usyk, I'm not sure it would affect him as much as it would affect other fighters, knowing him as a character. Fabio Wardley, he probably feel like he's just floating on a cloud right now. I think everything in the last little few months he touches turns to gold. He's just been fantastic. He's improved an awful lot. And when I look at him now, I see the confidence that sort of radiates off him. Even though he didn't win the title in the ring,
he beat Joe Parker.
But he beat Joe Parker, which is basically a world title fight, isn't it? So as a boxing fan, and obviously everyone loves the heavyweights. You couldn't ask for much more than this fight.
As far as choosing sides was concerned, Clark had felt that it was tough for him to put his money on any opponent other than Wardley. Clark argued that Wardley's knack of winning matches regardless of the situation has made him earn a reputation over time after sharing the boxing ring with him twice. Another thing about Dubois which tipped the scales in favor of Wardley for Clark was his poor defense. However, it is important to note that Dubois' powerful punching ability always kept him in contention.
Like I said, I think we're all in for a treat, because I don't know.
Who are you leaning towards?
I'm gonna say, after being in the ring with him twice, and obviously we know what happened, I really struggle to see past Fabio Wardley now at the minute with anyone really, because he seems to find a way, and I've seen vulnerabilities from Daniel in the past. So I think my head sort of says, and my heart actually, I like Fabio, so I think it sort of leans that way. But Daniel Dubois, I've said this a million times, other than David Price, Daniel Dubois is the second hardest puncher I've ever been in the ring with. So
when viewed from a wider angle, Simon Jordan had recalled how often there were similar queries that had been directed at Dubois in regards to his mental state during difficult bouts. He observed how often the question had been raised about Dubois' heart, which was both appropriate and inappropriate at times, particularly since Dubois was expected to engage in an all-out brawl with Wardley. He reminded everyone of the time Dubois went up against Joe Joyce and said that the fight was mainly colored by Dubois' orbital fracture and what happened in his corner, and not because he quit.
When it comes to Daniel, the question that always comes up, some of it unfairly, some of it I think with a little bit of justification, I think bringing it into the equation about Daniel's heart and propensity to bite down on the gum shields, because he's going to get dragged into potentially a dogfight with Fabio. When we look at it, all of us, from the broadest terms, you know, the Joe Joyce fight, I was at that Joe Joyce fight. I think Daniel ran out of ideas because he couldn't put a dent in Joe, but I think the orbital socket was the problem and his corner should have done him a favour rather than he get the mantra of being potentially lacking the heart.
For Spencer Oliver, these early rounds would be considered crucial for Daniel Dubois, where he could establish himself by throwing his jabs effectively, thereby dictating the tempo of the match. Moreover, Oliver believed that Dubois was sure to launch an aggressive assault on Fabio Wardley, while Wardley's instinctive aggression was expected to make their bout a head-on confrontation from the start. In the end, Oliver portrayed their bout as one where both fighters were reluctant to concede ground.
Into a situation, this fight is going to end up with someone getting knocked out or battered in submission. Both of them have got a 95% knockout rate, right? So someone's getting battered in submission or knocked out. As Daniel got the stickability to go, right, now it gets ugly, I'm not being confounded by technique like Usyk did, I'm being dragged into a dogfight. Do we think he's got the minerals to go through it?
History hasn't told us that so far, but I think that with Daniel Dubois, his big opportunity comes in those first 6 rounds. If he establishes that jab, that underestimated jab, by the way, that jab that he throws is like a right hand, and Daniel will roll the dice early. He'll go out there and take the fight to Fabio Wardley. Stylistically, Fabio is in front of him. He won't want to take a backward step. He wants to command that centre of the ring. So it gives Daniel a huge opportunity.
He's not able, is he, Fabio? He's not technically able to, is he?
Gives him a huge opportunity, you know, and I think that it's a fight of two halves, this one, for sure. You can't write off Daniel Dubois. He has got a great chance in this fight.
I agree.
Giving his honest take, Paul Smith said he had never questioned the toughness of Dubois, but rather how he reacted when fights became deeply uncomfortable. He explained that Dubois had shown enough in the early stages of tough bouts to suggest he could stand his ground and trade if things turned into a war from the start. However, Smith also felt that the real test tended to come later in fights, when fatigue set in and pressure built, which in his view had been the key mental checkpoint. He added that if the fight against Fabio had turned into a high-intensity battle early, Dubois could have been dangerous, but he still wasn't fully settled on a prediction. Then Teddy Atlas had also shifted the focus to the mental side of the matchup between Fabio Wardley and Daniel Dubois, arguing that mindset would have played a huge role in deciding the outcome. He suggested that going in, Wardley likely held the psychological edge due to his undefeated status and recent success at the top level, while Dubois was coming in off a knockout loss to Alexander Usyk. Still, Atlas also noted that Dubois carried a different kind of experience, including a traditional amateur background, whereas Wardley's rise had been highly unorthodox, built without that foundation, making the contrast between their journeys one of the most intriguing parts of the fight. Atlas had ultimately leaned toward an early finish in favor of Wardley, believing the fight would not drift into the later rounds. He explained that while there was a small chance both fighters could start cautiously, aware of each other's power, and especially wary of the right hand threats, he didn't see that being their natural style. In his view, neither Wardley nor Dubois were built to fight overly cautiously on the outside, making a controlled tactical stalemate unlikely. Instead, Atlas felt their personalities and instincts pointed toward a much more aggressive, high-risk encounter rather than a slow, strategic battle. Giving a lighter, more personal take, Derek Chisora had admitted he wasn't willing to commit to a prediction for the clash between Fabio and Dubois. He explained that he often gets pushed for picks, but this time he chose to sit on the fence to avoid upsetting people in both camps, especially given his personal connections in the sport. Chisora also spoke warmly about Wardley, noting the mutual respect they shared over the years, before making it clear that regardless of the outcome, he expected an entertaining and competitive fight between two heavy-hitting heavyweights. So after hearing all the expert takes before the fight, the real question now is, who do you think actually read it best? From bold predictions to cautious analysis, some got surprisingly close while others missed the mark entirely. Drop your thoughts in the comments on who you think came closest to calling it right, and don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns and fight reactions like this.